Hey guys, welcome to another TravelScope Travel Tuesday. I'm Davy Sutton with my co-host Lori McBrown. How are you?
Hello, I'm fabulous. How about you today?
I'm good. I'm kind of like a little all scattered brain because right after our show, I'm running to the airport. I'm going to Quebec today.
Oh, you poor thing.
Well, it's going to be super freezing, and it's going to be like the temperatures are like low 30s, high 20s, but Wednesday night, it says the temperature is 3, and I don't even know what that means.
So I'm assuming that you're going to be bundled up well. You've got lots of layers to go with you.
Well, I'm assuming that I'm going to be indoors. That's what
There's plenty of malls. You can buy things if you need it.
Yeah, I did bring as many layers as I could without trying to check a bag. We'll see if my overextended carry-ons will make the cut. But it's only about a 2.5-hour flight from Atlanta, so
Doesn't that seem odd? Like when I went to Toronto, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not almost not even as long of a flight as it is to Orlando, and mentally it just seems wrong.
It just seems like it's there. It's so far. I know. Thanks.
Yes.
Desiree says Quebec sounds cold. It seems cold. So I'll let you guys know via social media. So what's new with you, Lori?
Not a lot. Trying to kind of get some projects going, and of course we've all been thrown off by the eastern half of the United States actually getting, a little snow in for some of us, which means a lot in some areas. And yeah, it kind of throws a lot of business off. One
thing I did notice about you today is you're rocking a headscarf. I think you were trying to expect me to do it today, but I'm not wearing one today.
Well, I actually wear them a lot at home. And sometimes I wear like a full scarf and stuff, but I have actually had, and it's interesting with the conversation we're going to have today, I don't wear a full headscarf out because I've actually had some issues.
Oh, yeah.
But I do because of this.
Right.
It's not.
Well, that's kind of the same reason why we wear hair scarves, is to keep our hair neat. And I'm sure that's what your big curly hair tries to do that too. Yes. Oh, man. Yeah.
Yes.
So we have a guest. Hopefully she can join us later on today, Rachel Hill from Rachel's Travels. Oh, let's see if she's able to log in right now. Hey, Rachel.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we have Rachel Hill from Rachel's Travels, and we're just getting started. But we just did our introductions, and so let's tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel, and I am the blog boss at racheltravels.com, and I'm really excited that you guys have me. So thank you for, allowing me to join.
Yeah, and so I actually met Rachel. Well, I recognized her because I follow her on Instagram. So she's a fellow traveler like us, and I've started following her adventures as she's out and about. And then I saw her at the New York Times travel show, and I recognized her from Instagram. So I was like, "You're Insta famous,"
and I was like, "What, girl?"
So today,
it was really cool.
Yeah, and also she has this fabulous lipstick. I think you're wearing it now. She ate a donut, Lori, and it didn't move. It didn't budge. There was nothing on there was no transfer of lipstick from her lip to the donut.
It's my favorite.
Okay, I'm gonna need that because I go through those like it's water trying to find the right ones, because you get them that actually stay on, but then like your lip looks like it's peeling off like a half an hour later in chunks, and trying. Yes, so I'm going to need that.
I'll give you the details later for sure.
To do the hookup. So we're going to talk about a topic that can be controversial, but I think it's something that's good to explore, and we can unpack it as long as we can. And I want all of you guys listening or in our chat room to chime in, because we don't really know the answers. We're here just to kind of flesh out the ideas of it all. And it's called cultural appropriation. And so I'm just going to start off by kind of defining what cultural appropriation is. It's actually very complicated to define, but I'm just going to kind of just do the simplified version. And it's when members of a dominant culture borrow from other cultures, minority cultures, without their input, exploiting it and using it without their consent. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat box, but just off the dome, Rachel, what are your thoughts about cultural appropriation?
You know, I've always thought the topic of cultural appropriation is quite interesting because, like you said, it's hard to define, and it's, you know, like, where do you draw the line, right? And we were talking about it when you sent me the information via email. And as travelers, for example, one of the photos was a picture of the singer, I think it was Maxwell, Tyrese, and somebody else. And they were in Dubai, and they had on, you know, like the traditional garb. And so it's like, is that really appropriating culture, or is it just, you know, embracing it and taking some photos and just thinking it's cool? Or are you trying to make fun of it and think it's just something cool and then you move on? You know, I think it's an interesting topic, and I would love to hear what you have to say about it, Lori.
You know, it's one of those, it's such a slippery slope. I mean, obviously the very in your face ones we can see and we get it, you know, from things such as, and I'd never really thought about it before, but, you know, let's say like Native Americans and using them as sports mascots and things like that. Like, I totally get that. But then as travelers, you know, we like to buy souvenirs and things like that, and how sometimes you can bring those back, and what was something that was wonderful from a travel has suddenly become, if you are to wear it or use it or whatever, could be disrespectful to somebody. And so there is a slippery slope, and I get part of it, but again, it's that, how do we define it? Where's the grades of it? And at what point does it become
Lori, I'm
inappropriate?
not able to put that question in, or the definition in the box. The question wasn't working for me, but I want to show you some of the images that I sent them before. So we have Tyrese, Will Smith, and Maxwell. It's not coming through really well. I had to switch computers. They're in Dubai, so you can see they're wearing kind of like traditional headscarves. Then this one is Rev Run, and he's actually at one of those, like, he's in a market where he asked him, he has a travel show on Travel Channel, where it's Rev runs the world. And they went to a market in Dubai, and he's like, dress me up like a sheik. And he dressed him up. So like part of the locals are taking part of it as well. And they put the headscarf, which looks like a table napkin, over his head, and then dressed him and his son up. But then here's Scott Disick. I don't know if you can see that really well. This is his Halloween costume. Khloe Kardashian, she was dressed as a cat. She had actually a clever caption for it. She said, "Pussy chic," because she's playing a cat, and he's that. And he got ripped for this, which I thought he was actually sincere. He wasn't dressing he wasn't carrying himself in a disrespectful way, and he actually has been to Dubai and UAE. So and I think that was his explanation. He's like, I got this back from where I came from, and he got ripped when he wore this a few years ago. I think it was like 2 years ago with that. So with kind of like that perspective of like, I want to pose the question to you, Rachel. Do you think that, first of all, do brown people just get away with it?
To be completely honest and transparent, I believe that brown people do get away with it. And, historically, when you think about colonization, typically it wasn't us, brown people of many or any culture that were, coming in and completely, restructuring and taking other people's culture and making it their own. So I think it's kind of hard when history is there and to say like it's hard for me to appropriate Arabian culture because there is a history of Black culture here in America, but I think it's kind of hard like with Scott, he is appropriating technically Arabian culture because it's like, who are you to come here and dress up like us? I think it all ties to like a historical thing and just people being sensitive because of the historical aspects of it. So to be honest, I do think that we kind of get away with, being able to try different things because there's like this understanding, based off of history, if that makes sense.
What do you think, Laurie?
I certainly feel like as a white woman, I can't get away with as much. It's and I don't mean to say get away, but you and I were talking right beforehand. I mean, I wear scarves all the time, but I only wear a full head scarf in my own home. If I were to go out in a full head scarf, I have gotten really nasty looks. I actually had a gentleman ask me if I was Muslim, and I said no, and he I'm not quite sure the words that he said to me, but I could tell they were not very kind. So, again, and I'm not in any way, I mean, I wear it because of this. It's not in anything, but yes, I feel like I have to be even more sensitive than Black people do because, yeah, absolutely. But, one thing I do wonder is, can we really knock people for cultural appropriation when a lot of these cultures make money off of selling those items that they then turn around and blast people for cultural appropriation? Like, let's say just here locally, let's say I go up and I go to Cherokee in Tennessee and I buy an Indian headdress.
This is Pharrell on the cover of Elle with an Indian headdress.
And I buy an Indian headdress on tribal land. They are selling it to make money. Am I not allowed to then wear something that I bought? Not that I'm probably going to, run around wearing it, but is it, again, at what point then, whose responsibility is it? And where is that line?
Yeah, I think I'm sorry, Davey.
Well, I was going to say, I think when a culture actually says to you, like explains to you, so like with this cover of Pharrell on Elle magazine, they actually, Native American or Indian Americans is what they want to be called now, actually said that is offensive, and they explain why during this last, I think, Halloween season, when the Indian headdress, like the chief the feathers mean something individually, and over his lifetime, each feather was, granted to him, almost like if we kind of think about Boy Scouts getting their honor, but way more important. And so if they overwhelmingly say to you, this is offensive, like,
Davey, you're cutting out.
Yeah,
there you are.
Micro sets of people, gaining financially from it. Because when I saw the picture of Tyrese and his friends, I first thought, I was like, okay, yes, that's what made me kind of think of this topic that we should discuss and kind of like talk it through. Yes, he's there on vacation. He was there on vacation. I read through his timeline. He was there with his buddies, and they just wanted to dress up like that for fun. If they were there because it's hot and it's in the desert, and the people say wearing this makes you much cooler when you go out in the desert and stuff, that's one thing, right? Because it's functionally the reason why they dress that way. But on its face, I really do think that when even if you're brown, and what they were doing is a cultural appropriation according to the definition, because now they are the dominant, based on the definition, they are the dominant culture coming in through tourism. But then it goes into with us as tourists, when I pick up my elephant pants from Indonesia, and I get my, flower head thing from Hawaii, what is right and what is wrong?
But I think the key is, I think the word that was used in the definition, to me, that is key, is, are you exploiting it? Are you using it as exploitation of it? Because to me, I mean, a lot of it I find absolutely beautiful, and me wearing it is not exploiting it. But that goes back to, what is the definition of exploitation? Because I think so many of these pieces, we have so many levels that it would take us a year of sitting here talking to even come to some semblance of it, what it is. I mean, what do you guys see as exploitation of culture? Where is that line?
I think everything is literally tied back to like the historical and the system of it. Because even when you were speaking of, going to Cherokee and getting like a headdress, well, why are the Indians there in the first place, right? And so you kind of get back to that. And then, of course, in order to, sustain themselves, they have to exploit themselves to sell the things that they, culturally that they have that is appealing to you and I as travelers, right? And so then it becomes like, are we exploiting them, or are they having to exploit themselves based off of, where that they've been put, or, how things have, revolutionized through, people coming in and out and different things like that. So I do think it starts to get a little tricky, because just like you, Davey, when I was in Thailand, those $3 Indian like elephant pants are like super, they're super thin. It's 100 degrees. You want something that you can throw on and off. If they rip, it's not a big deal. But, am I like buying 1,000 pair of them to sell on my site? Not necessarily. So right. I think that's when it kind of gets,
Well, I know somebody actually who's going this summer to sell 1,000 of them on her site.
Yeah. So then in that case, are you exploiting the culture, or are you, you really just want other people to experience these like really cool elephant pants that are thin and great when it's 100 degrees outside? Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then it goes back to the like when we're defining exploitation, because that is a slippery slope, because the dominant culture will sometimes say, I'm going to use like Washington's NFL team. For years, this is like the debate has been going on since the 80s about the name of the team, and the dominant culture have said, no, we're honoring you. And they're saying, no, this is offensive. It's analogous to calling us the N-word. You know what that means. Mm-hmm. And they're like, right. No, we're honoring you. So, that's exploitative to them as well. So I think that's where we get into. I want to show you a few more pictures, because it takes this conversation to the next level of kind of like, well, okay, yeah. Here's another one. This is this is a Redskins fan wearing the full headdress, and that conversation's been going on. So I don't know why this is not showing up so well. These are images.
I would be interested
from Afropunk.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah. And so Afropunk, they on their social media. Oh, we'll get to that girl right there later. On their social media, kind of. Each day, they have these festivals actually, and they some of the women and men like to dress or put face paint on their faces, kind of like African face paint, and it looks very beautiful. But if we're talking about this conversation, and we know some of the dynamic with African Americans and Africans not identifying with African Americans and Black Americans not identifying with African or with Africa, but trying to make a connection. But what does the face paint mean? I think when you think about what the face paint means, then is that also appropriation as well?
I would agree that you are appropriating, especially with that Afropunk. I believe I read a couple articles about how I would say real Africans were offended that, African Americans were at this festival, wearing traditional tribal face paint and dressing up certain ways. And that's because I would go back to your example with the Indian chief, how certain, exactly like certain types of face paint and hairstyles and things like that mean certain things. So if you just get on YouTube and you find a makeup tutorial of like an African princess and you think that you're honoring them, but you don't really know the history of it, I would definitely say that you are appropriating that culture. And although it was probably you weren't intentionally trying to be offensive, you don't know what you don't know, right? And so I think that's a lot of times with what happens with cultural appropriation. You don't know what you don't know, because you say, you know what, I'm in Dubai, these head wraps look awesome. Or like you say, Lori, I just like wearing head wraps. Sometimes I just need a head wrap on. And you're not trying to be offensive. You're just using it for a functional thing, or you think it's awesome. You think it's pretty. You love the way it looks. And you end up offending people, but you don't know what you don't know because you haven't researched it. You don't know what certain head wraps mean. You don't know that you shouldn't wear the garb of a sheik, that kind of thing, or 100 feathers in your headdress. So I think that's kind of where it gets a little slippery.
But have we just recently got to that? Because I think about, and this is one that's easy for me right now. But let's take the Headwraps. Headwraps were all the rage in old Hollywood, and it was never a big thing.
And it wasn't just for Black people.
It wasn't just for Black people. I mean, again, you had, and so, at what point do we go back and go, okay, it wasn't an issue then, but now it's an issue. And now that we are, with America supposedly being a melting pot, which I think is crap. I like we're a salad bowl because we don't actually melt. We all segregate. I mean, segregation is completely alive in America because that's just how it works. We don't melt. But, at what point, as more people come in and proliferation of different groups and stuff who then go, oh no, this that was okay before isn't, because now we've used this, and while we may not have been here en masse to say before, now we're deeming it is, I mean, again, I think it just can be so, it can be so ridiculous, but yet I get, but again, it's that whole, there's such a slippery slope. Where do we?
Well, see, I guess because I'm not familiar with old Hollywood, but I'm thinking about social media, right? Like now there is a platform for people to speak out about what is offensive and what's not. So in old Hollywood, I'm pretty sure people who were offended that, everyone was wearing head wraps, didn't have the platform or the right, or even, wanted to have their life ended because they spoke out about something that, offended them. So I'm just saying, I think now that there's this platform of social media and, communication is a lot more open. You can talk about things that
the minor group is more heard. That's what I think you're saying. It's like the minor culture actually has a voice that can be heard.
Right. Like old Hollywood, who was talking about, because when I think of head wraps, I think of, women, and especially in the Black American culture, who were working in the fields, and, you see old photos and they had on head wraps or working in the kitchen or different things like that. So perhaps I'm not familiar with old Hollywood, but I just think, there wasn't that opportunity to speak out about, what, I don't think that's cool, or, this is traditional based off of, whatever.
But at what point do we, let's say like the elephant pants, at what point is it still cultural appropriation versus functionality? And is it right to take someone's functionality away because, like in Atlanta, we get, 110 degrees in July at times. Is it wrong for you to have elephant pants then? But, and again, it goes back to, are you exploiting? Is it your intention, or is it how someone takes it? And where
then we get to the point of sharing cultures, right? Because if we
and isn't that how we've evolved, is by sharing cultures?
The elephant pants for hot degrees, like hot weather temperatures, like I do wear them here in Atlanta, and it's like, oh, I got this little piece from Indonesia, and then like when I wear a flower in my hair, it's what I picked up when I was in Hawaii and stuff like that. But for you, I think yours was always function, and I can just see that. I think the reason we're hypersensitive is because of images like this, and that is Kylie Jenner, where she is straight up appropriating. Right here, you just see Amanda Stenberg because of the story that came up from that, and I'll explain that to you. But like Kylie Jenner, she's altered her body in a particular way. Thank you. Let me get back to that. Sorry. But in addition to that, she also has cornrows in her hair, and not because the reason why we wear cornrows. We essentially wear cornrows to keep our hair neat. And then she captioned this Instagram photo with "I woke up like this," kind of using like an Ebonic kind of language. And this girl, Amanda Stenberg, who was most famously Rue on the Hunger Games, she just called her out, but she was more in an educational way, kind of explaining what cultural appropriation was and how this is offensive and why it's offensive, because you we're using this for function and you're using this for fashion. And when you use it for fashion, in addition to that, magazines come out and say that you made it up and it's brand new and it's the newest way. And that's where the offense comes into it. So I think that's where the history comes back to what Rachel was saying, the foundation of like, we've been doing this all along, but as soon as Lori wears her head wrap, then they're going to say, oh, the latest trend is hair wraps. What do they call, when with us curly head girls, we do pineapples, and I think it was on the runways. We do that to keep we'll twist our hair and to make it curly for the next day. But then we don't do that every night. So then we'll wrap our head and put all the curls at the top so that when we sleep, it stays neat. And then we can shake it down in the morning. And it was on the runway, I think a couple years ago. And then a magazine said, hey, look what's new. And they called it something that was
and it like clumping or something like that. I think that because when I saw that, I said, well, hell, that's how I handle my hair every night.
That's where the offense comes in too. And that's where we get super sensitive. And that's where the probably the basis for the looks of it. So you could have easily rebutted back to the girls on the street that gave you a look, my hair's curly too. Okay. But as a whole, that's where the history is. We're like where we get offended. Like we've been doing this all along, and like the whip and nene when Dancing with the Stars put it on,
or twerking and Miley Cyrus.
Like they and we talked about twerking before, Lori. We like the Yin Yang Twins they had it on the radio for about 10, 15 years. But Miley Cyrus twerks on a award show, and she's given credit as the twerking queen, which is everything that twerking is not, because you need to have a body to twerk. So
let me ask you this. All right, if we say that, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. If we say that it comes to the origin and not giving appropriate credit, is it appropriate if Miley Cyrus twerked but said, this is, from whoever
that did that? She probably did say that. It's the overall culture that the media deem it as new, and it happened in music. It happened with rock and roll. Rock and roll was
exactly. I was just thinking Elvis Presley and James Brown and the whole blues
and rock and roll.
So does our issue then come with mainstream media and not individuals? Because is it truly, is it reasonable to expect individuals to not take influence from other individuals? Part of who you are is because of the people that you are around, the people that you learn from and things like that. We take so many signals in. So is it completely reasonable for someone to be sterile and not take in those signals and you get what I'm saying? But
I think it's different. It's one thing to be influenced by and take nuggets here and there, but I think it's another thing to completely take everything from it and then popular or gain off of it. Like now Elvis Presley is considered the king of rock and roll, and for those who follow music, it's like, how are you the king of something that you literally did not create? The sound, the dancing, that kind of stuff. So that's when it starts to be offensive, when something that you've worked so hard for, that's been around for so very long, that is traditional, that speaks to the history of the people and all these types of things, and then another culture who didn't put in the work or that type of thing becomes popular off of it. And I think that's where, but again, it's one thing to pick and choose and get the influence, but it's another thing to completely like copy and paste, and then you get catapulted
plagiarism
on that.
Well, I was gonna say that's what we call plagiarism. And don't we hold, again, does it come back to, should we not hold media more accountable for things? Do we not, or does some of this responsibility not lie on people actually researching versus claiming something? We call it plagiarism. We expect certain types of things to be researched and appropriately credited. But
I think that's why this definition is now like popping up and is like a topic of discussion, because, back when Elvis was around, or, we can name many other artists, or, Headwraps in old Hollywood, that wasn't the thing to talk about. But now it's like, you know what, that's not cool. And so we have this, platform to talk about, plagiarism is not cool. Anyone who's had their work stolen, like creativity stolen, is pissed off about it. And so when there's like a group of people, and especially a minority group of people, now we have these platforms and this definition that comes about, like at what point, at what level, is this copy and pasting and it's inspiring and motivating, and then at what level are you just like stealing all of our shit and becoming popular based off of that, you know what I mean? And that goes to Miley Cyrus, that goes to like you braiding your hair, or even the new thing I saw on the runway, we call them
Bantu knots. That's the one I was looking.
And it's like,
and that's how we see her curls. You see her curls in her hair. You can do Bantu knots. The next day they will look like hers, and they call them tiny knots. That's right. They said tiny knots are the new thing. We're like, that's not what we wear out the house. Like, we don't wear our hair. Like, right. You don't wear the style out the house like that. You can, but it's not like generally we do that to get the curl pattern. But when you talked about media, Lori, being held accountable, they actually get bit in the butt when they don't understand and they do copy and paste. And it happened, I think, 2 days ago when the storm happened in the Northeast, and everyone was shut down, and they started to say they had a montage of all the news anchors saying Netflix and chill, and they don't know what that actually means. So they were like, hey, it looks like, and they would lead in their newscasts, it looks like it's a Netflix and chill night, when it actually means nothing to do with Netflix or chilling.
Or chilling
at all. Do you know what it means, Lori?
I don't. I'm sitting here going, well, I mean, when it's cold outside, I sit on the couch and watch movies and chill.
It's like a urban term for having sex.
Right. Like, when a guy invites you over, let's watch Netflix and chill. Like, it's not...
But then shame on them for using Netflix for that to confuse the rest of us. I mean, shame on you.
It moves in with your point. It moves in with your point of like they need to research before they say that. Where they say that.
But okay, but let's say that I hear that and I go, means, okay. Right? I know, yeah. Well, I go, oh yeah. When it's cold, I'm gonna sit and just binge watch Netflix and stuff. At what point? I mean, you do get to the ridiculousness that I go, like, I would have had no clue. Do I have to go research every freaking thing that I say?
But it's just an example of the urban culture, like it's what the kids say. And back to just kind of using, like, I woke up like this, it's their own language, and then you want to just go ahead and use it on Whippin' Nene. And when I saw Dancing with the Stars had Paula Deen Whippin' Nene, I said, you guys, we cannot Whippin' Nene any longer because Paula Deen is
right.
But
Yeah, that's a little extreme there to have Paula Deen doing that one of all people.
But that's just an example of the slippery slope that happens, and then the media got bit in the butt by just kind of taking something that they thought they knew what it meant on its face, but it had a different meaning. And it actually happens over and over again with urban music, where, like, do you remember "Get Low" by who was it?
The Yin Yang Twins.
Was it the Yin Yang Twins? Was it?
Yeah.
The Yin Yang Twins "Get Low," and they bleeped the curse word that they knew, but they allowed for years, maybe like 2 years on the radio.
Right.
I don't want to say it now because there's other people here that I need to censor. You can say it, Rachel, if you know it. That's fine. Just say it.
No, I'm okay.
It's the internet.
I'm cursed enough on here.
Okay, but it's all CD. They allow that, which actually, like I said, I'm censoring because there's people here, but a man's ejaculation.
Male ejaculation.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and that was on the radio for years.
Right.
See, I tell you, I'm learning so much today.
Anyways, but that's in essence kind of like the the micro to the macro of the discussion. We can go on forever, but I got to get ready for that flight that I'm going to get on moments away. I thank you, Rachel. Rachel's Travels. Rachel Hill for coming. Thank you all for joining our chat in the chat room. I will replay this on daily-affair.com. Also, it's on LoriMacBrown.com. And yeah, thank you, Safe Travels. Walking on Travel. Thank you. I will have a safe flight, and we'll do this again next week. Have a great week.
Take care, ladies. Thank you.
Sounds great. Have a good flight, hun. Bye.